What's good? It's Woog. Gervonta Davis stops Hector Luis Garcia between the 8th and the 9th round. This is going to be considered an 8th round RTD or retired. I think that's the official designation, and it's going to be 8th round because Hector Garcia did not come out for the 9th round, as he said that he could no longer see. So the fight was stopped in the corner between the 8th and the 9th round. In an otherwise pretty interesting fight. Coming into the fight, I was wondering if Hector Garcia was going to win like 2 out of the first 4 rounds. I actually had Garcia winning 2 of the first 3 rounds. I had Tank Davis winning the 4th and the 5th. I thought that the 6th was a toss-up. To be honest, I thought that the first round was a toss-up as well, but I think I gave that one to Davis. So after 5 rounds, I had Gervonta Davis up 3 rounds to 2. I had the 6th round. That one, to me, could have gone either way. I had Hector Garcia winning the 7th round. And then the 8th round is when Hector Garcia was having a good round. There ended up being this huge altercation in the audience that not only distracted the audience attention, and you saw people running over to that side of the crowd, but you saw Gervonta Davis then look out, and then the ref paused the fight for a few minutes while they handled the scuffle or the altercation that was taking place, which, some of the faces I saw rapper Meek Mill and his entourage, in their dreams and nightmares jackets, get escorted out of the, at least out of that section. I don't know exactly what happened. I also saw Gary Antoine Russell. And just before that, my cousin had texted me saying that Gary Russell Jr., that's Gary Antoine Russell's older brother, Gary Russell Jr., the longtime former featherweight WBC champion, was online just talking a bunch of trash about Gervonta Davis. So I don't know if that was related. I have no idea what the altercation was even involving. But I did see a lot of Philadelphia rappers or people in the rap realm like Wallow, who has a podcast with Gilly the Kid. And again, I saw Meek Mill and others. But yeah, there was a big pause in the action. And I thought that Hector Garcia was having a pretty good round. When they resumed the action, it was a lot of intense exchanges, which, to be fair, I thought that Hector Garcia was indulging in several intense exchanges. And we're going to talk about what was taking place in those exchanges as well. But towards the end of the 8th round, Hector Garcia got hurt really badly. I mean, his body language changed up. I thought that he started backing up, circling. He was not the same Hector Garcia from that point forward until, the end of the round, which he made it out of the round, and then again, quit on the stool, citing that he could not see. But he was also shaken, like head-wise. Like he mentioned that his head was still hurting several minutes after the fight. So, I thought that he just got blasted upside like the head-eye area. It was tough to see which punch did it because, they didn't, when they were showing the replays on the Showtime pay-per-view broadcast, they were showing the punches that took place after Gervonta Davis hurt Hector Garcia. They didn't, at least as far as I saw, didn't see which punch got Hector Garcia to almost kind of short circuit and look like he was about to fall before then kind of recovering, standing upright, and then trying to survive. Because after he got hurt, yes, he got hit with the punches where Gervonta Davis was like kind of fainting, delaying, and then throwing like a left hand followed by a hard, right hook. We saw Gervonta Davis hitting him, and they were showing a lot of those replays after the fight. But again, let me know if you saw what punch it was that first got Hector Garcia in trouble. But yeah, it was an interesting fight, and there were a lot of things on the Hector Garcia side that I was really impressed with. One, the guy's got a chin, right? I mean, Gervonta Davis also has a really good chin. Not that Hector Garcia is a devastating puncher, and he was moving up from 130 to 135, but he was hitting Gervonta Davis pretty cleanly, but he himself, Hector Garcia, was getting hit with a lot of clean Gervonta Davis punches and was taking them well up until that moment. But some of the things that Hector Garcia was doing that I liked was, and I saw this against, Chris Colbert, against Roger Gutierrez, and even against Canelito Avalar before all that, is that you see fighters punching in certain punch patterns, and when it's predictable, you can see the opponent start to roll with it and anticipate the punch pattern. Like, even when Boots Ennis was getting hit against Chookagian, which I probably butchered that pronunciation. Chookagian is a female MMA fighter in the UFC. But yeah, when Karen, we'll call him, who was able to survive much longer against Boots Ennis than most people thought that he would. He went the distance against Boots, but he was throwing left, right punches to which Boots Ennis could predictably go here, catch it. Hector Garcia likes to double up on certain hands. So him being a southpaw, Garcia as well, was throwing the lead right hooks, but sometimes he would go 1-2 with the same hand as opposed to always 1-2, 1-2. So Gervonta Davis, I thought, was eating some of those second of the doubling of one hand punches, and when you're able to double with one hand and the second punch comes harder than the first, you've got something going. And I thought Hector Garcia was actually pretty good at intelligent punch selection. So again, he would double up sometimes with the right hook, and that second right hook would be coming seemingly as hard as the first one. So I thought that was effective for Hector Garcia. But also, I thought that him doing the perimeter boxing, kind of boxing from the outside, he was actually able to control range and fight defensively a little, at least in those spots, better than I thought he would. The problem came when he would indulge in the face-to-face, stand there and exchange moments, which it got more and more increasing as the fight went on. And granted, in a lot of these exchanges, he was giving as good as he was getting. Again, Gervonta Davis was getting hit by an array of different types of punches in some of these exchanges. But Gervonta Davis isn't the best minute-by-minute fighter. Like, he does give up rounds. He gives up sections of rounds. Not that he goes completely inactive. It's not totally feast and famine in the way that, say, Deontay Wilder in some of his fights were. Like the second fight against Luis Ortiz, for instance, where he's got to either hurt you, knock you out, drop you, or he's likely losing the round. Gervonta Davis isn't quite there, but because of the height and reach dynamic, he's often having to give up moments to then look for the opportunities to explode and to really get after it for like 20 to 30 second periods of the rounds. Sometimes they can occur twice or even more within one round. Sometimes you'll just get that 1 30-second pocket in the round. And other times he does fight behind the jab a little bit more effectively and control the minute-by-minute action a little bit more. But what I was finding in this fight was that Hector Garcia would often be winning, say, 2 minutes of the round or 2 minutes, 15 seconds of the round. But that the 45 seconds that Gervonta Davis wins in the round can debatably tip the scales to where he could steal the round if he's that much more effective in that 45-second pocket than Garcia was in the 2+ minutes of him winning the round. So what you would see Garcia do was patiently kind of either probe with the lead hand, feint his way into position, and sometimes he would do that eye trickery where you're looking low, going high, or vice versa. And he was mixing in the different feints where he kind of does something with his shoulders or with his hands or with his head. Not too many of the foot feints, but the shoulder, head, and hand feints to draw a reaction to then not lunge in, but to come in hot and heavy with a strong lead left hand and then start trying to bait him into an exchange where then you could find more opportunities to basically try to put a dent in his head because Gervonta Davis does punch that hard. I mean, you had a very game Hector Garcia who at a certain point when he got hit with the right or with the wrong punch that he just could not continue and made the choice not to continue between rounds. Gervonta Davis is pound for pound one of the most devastating punchers in the sport, which makes the future prospects of Davis fights look very interesting matchups-wise because I tend to think that Ryan Garcia might win some of the minute-by-minute action in some of the slower rounds where there's nobody getting demonstratively hurt in the round, nobody getting dropped in the round. It's just not one of those highly eventful rounds. I can see Ryan Garcia start to win those rounds where, not that it's panic time, but that Gervonta Davis has to do more as he could potentially start falling back on the scorecards and sort of need a home run or at least a couple of doubles, a knockdown or something to get back into the fight scorecards wise. Even though if you look at the scorecards in this fight, I was pretty astounded. Again, I had it like 3 rounds to 3 with the 6th round being a swing round heading into the 8th round, and then Gervonta Davis obviously winning the 8th round big. So I had like 4 rounds for Davis, 3 rounds for Garcia, 1 round could go either way. These judges had it 6 rounds to 2, 7 rounds to 1, and 7 rounds to 1, all Gervonta Davis. I swear, I don't know how they get to these scores sometimes. It's mind-boggling. Let me know if you saw it potentially 7 rounds to 1 or 6 rounds to 2. I could see the argument maybe for 6 rounds to 2, but 7 rounds to 1, that is almost unfathomable for me. And 2 of the judges had it that way. But you know what's also kind of interesting is how aloof Gervonta Davis looks in some of these spaces. It looks like he either totally drifts mentally or is just focused on something totally different, but it looks like he's daydreaming. Like I was watching this fight with my dad and my brother and my mom at my brother's pad, and one of the things that my brother said that was pretty damn funny was that the stare that Gervonta Davis has when he's giving that look where he could be looking at somebody or just kind of looking off or something, but he looks like his mind isn't totally in like what Coach Calvin Ford is telling him in the corner, because Calvin Ford's right here, Gervonta Davis is kind of right here, and you sometimes see Calvin Ford kind of checking in like, hey, you with me? But my brother said that it's sometimes like when you're like at a red light or something, driving around, you're at a red light and you kind of have a feeling like, am I being watched right now? And then you look at the car next to you and you got like a dog in the passenger seat just with fixed eyes. And you're like, whoa, okay. Like, that's kind of the look that Gervonta Davis has when he's just kind of staring off. I don't know if that impacts performance one way or another. I think he's always kind of been like that. And sometimes you'll see him even talking with people in the crowd and looking like he's paying attention to something that's going on outside of the ring. I remember seeing that against Rolando Romero. But I just thought that was an interesting observation, in the fight. But, I was wondering how all of what is going on with Gervonta Davis was going to impact his performance from the court case that we're having in February, which is, to me, the biggest potential disruptor of Davis versus Ryan Garcia is the February court proceedings involving the alleged hit and run, which if you listen to the details, like it can sound pretty bad for Gervonta Davis. Like I think that the lady who was in the car that Gervonta Davis hit, like was pregnant and saw him face to face, eye to eye, and said like something to the effect of, please help me. And then he fled the scene. Like, we'll see how this works out, but I can potentially see February going bad for Gervonta Davis, at least bad enough to where the fight doesn't take place in April. Like, even if he does just like a few months in jail or something like that, you're not having an April fight. I just have a suspicion that something legally is going to keep Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia from happening in April at least. But I was wondering how, the last couple of weeks with the alleged domestic, beating or, scuffle, altercation, whatever you want to call it, a alleged closed hand slap, if you could try to visualize what that looks like, but a closed hand slap and then a recantation, all that stuff. Like, I was wondering how that was going to impact Tank Davis's performance. And it's tough to tell. It's tough to tell whether he was impacted in the ring, whether he was either more patient or less patient or took a little too long to get started or was whiffing with too many shots, getting hit with too many shots. I don't know exactly what to attribute to everything that's been happening over the past couple of weeks. I'm always impressed by Gervonta Davis's endurance, his stamina, the fact that his punch carries late. where you see in his, in his resume, several middle and late round knockouts and stoppages. To me, that's a big problem for Gervonta Davis' opponents. You could be doing pretty well, like through 5 rounds, through 6, but at any moment, one punch could change the complexion of everything. And that's more or less what we got here. Again, this was a very competitive and interesting fight. But to Gervonta Davis' credit, he did what he had to do to get the abrupt stoppage win in what was kind of billed as a tune-up, but was always caveated with a, hey, Hector Garcia is not anyone's tune-up. This is, Gervonta Davis is going to be in for a pretty challenging fight, was what the idea was, but that Gervonta Davis would probably pull through and come through with a late stoppage, which is what we got here. But yeah, let me know what you thought about Gervonta Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia. Did it surprise you the way that the fight unfolded and the way that when when Tank Davis seemed to be seizing control in the, we'll say the 4th round and then in the 5th round where it looked like Davis was winning rounds again, did it impress you that Hector Garcia then kind of flipped the momentum again, fought a even 6th round, and to my eyes, won the 7th round? Did that part impress you? Because when we got there, I was thinking, wow, like how is this going to play out? Gervonta Davis took control a little bit. Now he looks like he might have lost that 7th round. He's losing the 8th round. Again, he was losing, in my view, was losing the 8th round before that fight outside of the ring. But I still had the thought of, but damn, Hector Garcia is really indulging in some of these hot exchanges where both guys are letting like 3 punches go in the exchange. Not a 1-2, not a jab, not, no more controlling the distance and making Tank Davis have to basically jump in from the outside to close the range. Because again, Hector Garcia was doing well in those moments, but he just one too many times was getting lulled into a let's kind of stand here, throw 3 to 4 to even 5 punches in a combination. It made for some very intense action. You're just on the edge of your seat because all of these exchanges are potentially very consequential. But yeah, you can only be wrong against Gervonta Davis so many times, very few times, before you're in a lot of trouble. And Hector Garcia, by his own admission after the fight, was in a lot of trouble after that punch. But yeah, again, let me know which punch it was that flipped the momentum and that hurt Hector Garcia to where he was in survival mode for the rest of the 8th round. And also, let me know how you see a potential Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia showdown playing out. That one has to happen. That's going to be must see because you know that both of these guys, like, look, I could see Tank Davis catching Ryan Garcia's upright chin and knocking him down or out in an Amir Khan-like way to where the taller fighter gets blasted and is basically stuck on his back looking up, like from his back, like what just happened. I could see that happening, but I could also see Ryan Garcia totally starching Gervonta Davis, trying to close the distance and kind of getting caught in an exchange with the hand down, getting hit by a hook and getting basically blasted like, I don't know, like Jermell Charlo hit Erickson Lubin to where Gervonta Davis is on the ground maybe with like a stiff arm. I could see either one of these scenarios happening where one guy gets obliterated by 1 or 2 punches from the opponent, especially with the interesting height dynamic. Some people think that could actually play against the taller fighter if his chin is exposed, but this could go both ways because there is a lightning quickness to how Ryan Garcia throws that left hook, and I think that he's got an increasingly improved right hand. Now, is he going to keep on letting that right hand go against Davis the way that he did against Fortuna? Like, he was throwing that right hand with reckless abandon. Like, he would like throw one after another, double up on right hands. I tend to think that he's going to be a little bit more reluctant to let so many power punches go against somebody who's as dangerous as Tank Davis. But I just have to see how these dynamics play out. But yeah, let me know what your early thoughts are there. And let me know what you thought of Gervonta Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia. We're going to get into some of the undercard fights in another video. I thought that it was a very long broadcast. It was like 2 a.m. on the East Coast by the time this thing was wrapped up. Because, they didn't enter the ring on my side until, on the West Coast, until like 10 o'clock p.m. So I'm I was starting to fall asleep towards the end of the Boots Ennis fight. And then I recovered for the main event. But man, that seemed like a very long fight card that started at 6 and had only 4 fights on it. But it's like when all 3 undercard fights go the distance, it just makes for a man, we're here for a while, aren't we? But yeah, let me know what you thought about the fight card, about the main event, and about the idea of Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. And do you think that this fight even happens in April? Let me know in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.